Mayor Freeman, we checked, 4% of the population in Arizona is undocumented, according to Pew. As I understand it, you have limited cooperation with ICE, and you hand people over to federal authorities if they have an immigration infraction, but your local authorities picked them up for something else, right? That's what, in effect, that policy means. Why does that work for you when it doesn't work in places like Minneapolis and you have this high degree of tension and this standoff?
Well, personally, I think that's a great question, but I think there's some misinterpretation, excuse me, of it, because in Mesa, we have an agreement with ICE, but however, it's only on infractions that may be a civil infraction, and so we don't have a jail in Mesa, Arizona. So we go to a holding facility, and we've been working with ICE for since 2009 with an agreement that we found very successful with. But more importantly, what we're doing in Mesa, I've elevated it to the next level. We have Dias de Muertos, the Day of the Dead, that we have with our Hispanic, Latino community. We have El Grito, who's the liberation of Spain from Mexico. So we have these great experiences in Mesa, Arizona, in our downtown area in cooperation with our Latino, Hispanic area. And I meet with our pastors as well to make sure that everything is going well on their end. And you don't feel the tension at the local level right now? Like the debate we're having as a country? No, I don't.
Are people talking about it?
Yeah, they talk about it in our community, but I'm meeting with the people who are actually affected by it, and they find comfort in knowing that our city stands ready to support them.
Mayor Holt, I want to ask you about your city, but also in this leadership role you have, like, how are you counseling mayors to go through this right now? This is a real pressure at the federal level to sometimes change local laws or state laws.
Well, I don't know, a few observations in reaction to that. I mean, first, it's really important to point out that we have enforced immigration laws in this country for over a century. ICE has been around for 2 decades. There was even a previous Trump administration and in none of those times did you see this level of chaos in our cities. I understand in the previous Trump administration there was controversy about things at the border, but I'm talking about all the 1,000 miles from the
internal
border
enforcement.
in places like Minneapolis. So we can look back to previous eras of normality and appreciate that there are ways to competently enforce immigration laws in this country. And I think that's what we're kind of asking for is that sort of pivot back to a new strategy that may be an old strategy. And I think we all accept that this administration prioritizes a higher level of enforcement. But what we're seeing in the conflicts in the streets of Minneapolis is just obviously unacceptable. And we're still sort of reeling from what happened last Saturday. And, we're generally encouraged that the administration seems to be exploring that pivot, and of course we understand it takes time to sort of get the right personnel in place and make the policies. So, I mean, we're giving them that space. But what was happening in Minneapolis that kind of culminated in the second death of a protester last Saturday is obviously something that we would all fear to happen in our cities. Yeah. And we feared that kind of chaos was starting to potentially creep around the country. I think the other thing I want to observe, though, is that mayors are certainly caught in a little bit of an impossible situation because, we take these roles with our chief obligation being the protection of our residents, and we're even given a police department, people with guns to aid us in that pursuit. But there is a thing called the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution, and when the federal government and federal law enforcement comes into your city, we are fully subservient to that in the eyes of the law, and we also believe in the rule of law. So we get caught kind of in the middle of these tensions, and we need a federal government who will use discretion and restraint with that power. And that has mostly worked for the last 250 years. So I think we just need to remind everybody that this is possible, and I think you see mayors maybe messaging some of that to our residents, some of it to Congress, some of it to the administration, just trying to find a happy medium for everybody where we can coexist with all of these inherent tensions that, of course, have always existed and we have largely been able to manage.